I feel like I can never escape the conversation about the NFL if it doesn't involve the Eagles and the NFC East. And about, well, quarterbacks. So talk more about the Eagles and NFL quarterbacks, the NFC East, and more. Joining us now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline, National Fantasy Sports Analyst for Sportsnet, Andy McNamara joins us now, as all guests do, on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline on 97.3 ESPN. Andy, how you doing on this Saturday?
I'm doing good, Josh. How are you? Great to chat with you again.
Good to chat with you. So, listen, everyone's got an opinion about the NFC East and about quarterbacks. And, you know, one of the biggest topics in recent weeks, because it feels like if you mention quarterbacks, it feels like the name Carson Wentz has to come up. And if the name Carson Wentz comes up, then Dak Prescott comes up, or vice versa. So I want to start off with this, and I just want to keep it very basic, and we can kind of go from there. Where do you think Carson Wentz stands among the quarterbacks in the NFL today?
Ooh, interesting. I think when we look at Carson Wentz, we have to look at, and you can't really, I think, put it all on one season or another for Carson Wentz. Because what I wanted to see last year was this. Could he stay healthy for 16 games? Check. He did it. Threw for over 4,000 yards. Tremendous touchdown to interception ratio, 27-7. I feel he gets knocked a little bit. Like, people talk about last season as, the Eagles, the record wasn't that great. Yeah, they won, but it seems like to me he wasn't getting enough credit. So if I'm looking at it, do I put him above, let's say, his draft classmate in Jared Goff? Yes, I do. I think he always had more athletic upside to it, and he knocked out that injury bug conversation last season. This is a big year for him because they did draft Jalen Hurts, of course, right? Now, whether you want to believe that's for a future replacement, a gadget player, whatever. I think when you look at Carson Wentz, I'd put him right in that, probably just above that halfway point, with the potential, though, to jump back up into an elite level conversation. But I think that's probably a fair spot for him if we put him in that right around just above that middle conversation.
See, one of the things that's interesting, Andy, is because, you are not in the Philadelphia market. So one of the problems in our market, for example, is if you're someone, for example, like myself, who thinks highly of Wentz, the people come out of the woodwork. Well, Foles won the Super Bowl. Well, Wentz has been injured every year of his football life. Well, Wentz has fumble issues. Well, this, well, that. But then if you're someone who doesn't like Wentz, what happens is everyone comes at them, like you said. Well, look at the touchdown to interception ratio. The guy has 7 interceptions every year the last 3 years. Well, the guy was throwing to nobodies. Well, 2 of his 4 years in Philadelphia, he has had some of the worst receivers in the NFL in terms of drops per target. So what is the happy medium between these extremes?
I think when you look at what Carson Wentz was able to do, and let's take specifically last season here, Josh, the wide receiver class, I hated coming in to what Philadelphia had last year because people said, Deshaun Jackson's back. He can't stay healthy and he's old. Alshon Jeffrey can't stay healthy and he's old. Who's he throwing to? It was just the tight ends, really, and a mix at running back. For what he was able to accomplish with the wide receiver base, with all the injuries that he had last season, I think was remarkable. Like, Josh, by the end of the year, Greg Ward Jr. was the top guy. What? And people are dumping on Carson Wentz? Let's take a minute here. Now, also, what I was disappointed in Philadelphia's draft was that their wide receiver choice in this deep draft class was Jalen Reagor, who I see personally, I had so many other receivers ranked ahead of him as kind of a glorified slot guy. Is he going to be a nice piece? I guess. I think he could have got more and done better for it, so I don't think that problem is solved. Where I do think we're going to see a bump up is the increased workload from Miles Sanders that's going to benefit Wentz, because I'm seeing, and if we look at this from a real life and fantasy football side, I see Miles Sanders without Jordan Howard jumping up to a true RB1. And so I think Sanders taking a step forward is going to complement Wentz. From the passing side, of course, teams are going to have to respect the run as well. So even though the wide receiver conversation didn't get much better for Wentz, I think he is poised to have a better year because of the backfield.
Andy McNamara joining us here on the Boardwalk on the Hotline on 97.3 ESPN. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at AndyMC81 on Twitter. So you mentioned the receivers. and obviously there's a lot of consternation on all sides about who is going to play, who isn't going to play. Everyone's got a different opinion on the receivers, but you mentioned the running back. Philadelphia does have a history in the last 20 years of, well, our receivers might not be great, but we got, years ago it was Deuce Staley, then it was Brian Westbrook, then it was LaShawn McCoy. Now you got Miles Sanders. Is Miles Sanders able to be that focal point of an offense like some of these Eagles running backs have been in the past?
I think he's going to be able to be the focus along with the tight ends. One, because they don't really have a choice. But two, that's also Doug Peterson has been able to, with the personnel given to him, built out this offense. So if you have that combo of keeping it safe for Carson Wentz with his athletic upside of being able to chuck it downfield when the opportunity presents itself. So for Miles Sanders, yes, I think this is somebody where he doesn't have to shoulder the whole load of the offense. But if you can couple him with the tight ends, and let's not sleep on Dallas Goedert. I don't know what the Philly market feels about Dallas Goedert, but I'm so impressed with this two-tandem tight end set that when you look at Goedert to take a little bit of the stress off of Ertz, you got those two out there at the same time. You can block, you can catch. Then you have Sanders who can pass protect a bit as well. Catch, can run. That little short-ish passing game, that little bubble that he has taken the receivers out of it, I think really can complement Carson Wentz here. And for Miles Sanders, again, you have defenses that are going to have to watch him from all sides, because this is a three-down back now who doesn't have to come off the field. And his backups, while you can have guys who can spell in Boston Scott, Elijah Holyfield, Corey Clement, it's not somebody where it's a true committee. This is Miles Sanders' backfield.
All right. Now, that being said, I mentioned it earlier. A lot of the conversation is Wentz versus Prescott.
Yeah.
What do you got for me?
If we're looking at weapons, a comparable, Josh, I'm sorry. Dak Prescott wins that conversation. An embarrassment of riches. The complete polar opposite from wide receiver are the Dallas Cowboys. You have Amari Cooper. You take CeeDee Lamb, who I had ranked as my top wide receiver in this class. Oh, by the way, Michael Gallup had a pretty damn good year, too. You got those three guys. Hey, how about Zeke Elliott for you? And Dak Prescott has all of that to work with still an excellent offensive line. So if we're looking at just talent, like if you put Carson Wentz on the Dallas Cowboys or with those weapons, Carson Wentz, I feel, gets more out of those weapons than Dak Prescott will. That being said, Dak Prescott still had a very good season. And again, I'll dip in and out of the fantasy conversation too. Dak Prescott had the second most fantasy points of any quarterback. Number two, Josh. Like, people aren't giving him the respect that he deserves from that side of things. Like, you had now CeeDee Lamb with Zeke Elliott and those other two. Tight end, there's not too much to talk about. But the offense with Mike McCarthy, how much they can implement in this strange offseason, right, is going to be for a lot of teams is going to be an issue. But you have a new revamped offensive look. Creativity should be amped up in Dallas. If I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan, I'm pretty damn excited about this. And this is going to be, I think, a dogfight for the division between the Eagles and the Cowboys.
Now, here's where I'm going to play a little devil's advocate with you, because this has been my position for the last few weeks.
Okay.
I think the Eagles should be the favorites in the NFC East in the 2020. And to me, it's as simple as this. The Eagles, the head coach, the offense, and the defensive playbooks are all the same.
Yeah.
Dallas, new head coach. Okay, the same offensive coordinator, but we really don't know what his role is in Kellen Moore. New defensive coordinator, changes in the secondary. We know that there's a brand new center coming in to Dallas. When was the last time Tyron Smith has played all 16 games healthy? I think Dallas has some serious questions that when you compare those questions to the Eagles, I like the Eagles' stability over Dallas's changes.
Well, and Josh, if we look at the whole division, Philadelphia is the only team with a returning head coach. The only one. Now, I wouldn't take the Giants or the Redskins as serious threats anyway, but still, there's something to be said for that. And in this strange offseason where you have to have virtual meetings, who knows when players are actually going to get onto the field? How much are they going to be able to be active because of COVID-19? This is a huge benefit. So for Philadelphia, I think especially early, if they can come out hot and you hit it while these other teams get acclimatized to their new coaches, get used to each other on the field during gameplay, Philadelphia absolutely has the benefit because they can hit it right away without missing a beat. And so if Philadelphia this first quarter of the season can get going and you have, for fun, let's say a 3-1 start and go from there, and maybe Dallas stubs its toe a little bit getting used to Mike McCarthy, there is no doubt that they can be in line to win the division again. As the season goes on, though, that's why I feel it is going to come down again, right down to the wire. Hopefully both teams from an excitement standpoint are a little bit more above 500 than they were last year. That would be nice. But you have the Eagles and the Cowboys, I think, are just going to be neck and neck the whole way. But you're right. Like, at least right off the bat, at least that first quarter of the season, Philadelphia has the advantage, no doubt, with that coach return.
Now, speaking of the coaches, where do you think Doug Peterson stands in the NFL? Because I feel like with coaching, if the name is in Belichick, Reed, or Carroll, it's all kind of your personal preference. It's almost like people who go get ice cream, right? I want chocolate. Well, I want vanilla. Well, I want strawberry. Well, never mind all of you guys. I want chocolate chip. Like, it feels like how we rate coaches. Well, this guy won a Super Bowl. Well, this guy has more wins. Well, this guy, it feels like how you're rating coaches a lot of times is very much in the eye of a beholder. So, in your eyes, where does Doug Peterson stand in the NFL?
I think if we look at it from a division-by-division standpoint, and you kind of pick the best ones out of each division, that's probably the easiest way to sort of rank it. So NFC East, you have Peterson right away because we don't know what this revamped Mike McCarthy is. He says he's changed up and he's freshened things up. He says it. We don't know. I think you give him the benefit just based on the talent around him over Ron Rivera, who is, I'd say probably right now, again, because it's a new team and we don't know, is a shade below him. If we look from returning coaches, Matt Nagy exciting anybody in Chicago? No. Matt Patricia? No. Matt LaFleur in Green Bay. Good Lord, what the heck are the Packers doing? Right? So if I'm looking at Doug Peterson, I would put him, if I'm ranking it and I'm looking, I'd say maybe around that 10 mark. Like, I think he's definitely got to be considered one of the best coaches, certainly above the middle of the pack. And I think you got to probably put him, we could run through and you can make cases for each team. But if I would say Doug Peterson around 10, just as an early sort of look, that seems about right to me. Because you have to respect, won a Super Bowl. Look what he did. We talked about all that Carson Wentz had to overcome last year with the lack of weapons. How about Doug Peterson? What do he have to do? Right? Battling all these injuries and still having the team, as ugly or not as it may have been, to really take that division. It's a case where, all right, hey, 9-7 or not, you still won the division and you have a Super Bowl. So I got to give a lot of respect to Doug Peterson.
Now, that being said, you respect him, you think well of him, but where do you put him? Is he a top 5, a top 10? Because obviously he's got a Super Bowl, but so does John Harbaugh, and so does Pete Carroll, and guess what? Tom Coughlin's got 2 rings. He got fired in Jacksonville. So,
and they all get fired.
Right. So, I mean, at what point is it a Super Bowl really that important in the scheme of your resume as a head coach in the NFL?
Yeah. And we know it's a what have you done for me lately type of league, right? Like, heck. But what stands out to me more is the Super Bowl is great, of course. It's that the Eagles won that division last year. That's what stands out to me. Despite how ugly it was, he won the division. That's the first goal of any team. Win your division. He did it. And he did it through adversity. He did it through overcoming injuries. And that's why I think when you look at Doug Peterson coming out of last year into this year, the Eagles have a really good shot at repeating as division champs. And as we know with Carson Wentz, hey, you know what? The guy was pretty damn good in that Super Bowl year, wasn't he? Before Nick Foles took over. People want to hand it all to Nick Foles, and thank goodness he was there for Eagles fans to pick up the slack. But you're not even at that point without Carson Wentz. So for Doug Peterson, if I'm looking, I'm going to say I'll put him right around the 10-11 mark in coaches right now. That's where I'll put him. With this as a very interesting year to prove it, can they take advantage of the continuity? That's going to be a case throughout the league this year. How much of a factor that is, and like I said earlier, if the Eagles can pounce out of the gate quick, give themselves a little bit of a cushion, that's going to be vital as all these other teams with new head coaches try to ramp up. And it's winnable. Like if we look, okay, if the league starts with that Washington Redskins, can you beat them? You should. Los Angeles Rams, I'm not that impressed with Jared Goff. Cincinnati Bengals stink. Love Joe Burrow. Niners are a tough out. Pittsburgh, Baltimore, that's a bit of a gauntlet. Then you got New York. So it's going to be difficult. But if you can hit, let's say, start off 3-0 and then sort of battle it out from there, you got a shot.
Follow him on Twitter at AndyMC81. Andy McNamara, Sportsnet, and all guests. He appeared on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Andy, I knew I could count on you for some energy here on a Saturday.
Josh, anytime. I absolutely love talking to you. And as you said, coming in, the NFL never sleeps. That's what's so beautiful. Never. It never sleeps. There's always a conversation to be had.
And guess what? We might have training camps next month.
Oh, please. Hey, let's do it. I hope so.
We're all pining for it. I know, especially you are as well. I appreciate you jumping on, my friend.
Oh, anytime. Talk to you soon.